Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I thought I was going to be able to have both those up at the same time, and I am not. Let's go here. All right. So when we're ready, we'll do a little introduction and get it going.
Ready when you are.
Okay. So
we got about 6 minutes though before the people join.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. We'll wait.
So let's hang out, have a glass of wine, relax.
Absolutely. Basil told me they were biting at the bit, and I needed to get on and get started, so I jumped on.
I started 45 years ago in television. I've been a world
the radio.
Kind of personal information there, don't you think, Dr. Jim?
Well, I kind of we kind of got to have that information out there. I mean, in order to know what to do. So I'll try going from here, and we'll ask questions. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Patrick. You gave us a real big, like your case is definitely one of the bigger scoring cases. So going off of all your stuff, and yeah, so you know.
Nothing like a good old-fashioned baseline.
Exactly. I know I'm going to get a percentage improvement with you, so this is good.
Max says she's next.
Well, good.
Both Dr. Orbeck and Dr. Satil have agreed to do second and third practicals just to kind of give a different kind of view on how they do go through it.
Oh, sure. That's great. I know I saw all the email trails on it. I think that's fantastic.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
It's Doreen. How are you?
I'm doing well, Doreen. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Doreen.
I'm just listening in. I just thought I'd say hi.
Well, good. You get to do the next one.
Oh, good. I talked to Alicia today a bit. So I'm on to learn from the master, right, Jim?
I don't know about that, but I'm hopefully even from this pig, a pearl will drop.
Every pig has its pearl, just like every rose has its thorn.
Oh, it's nice.
So we're going to go and start in just a second. I did want to make a mention for the doctors that are listening in. It was at my own volition that as of November, I went off all supplements. The only thing I've been on is my testosterone pellets, as well as a 2.5 dose by Stolic for mildly increased blood pressure, which is probably related somewhat to the job and lifestyle and everything else. So Jeff was aware of this. I don't think Jeff's going to be able to join tonight, but I wanted to make sure everybody's aware that a lot of what you're seeing tonight is not under his guidance. But I really wanted to go back and see what my baseline zero looked like with no supplementation. And then my plan after tonight is to follow Jim's instructions to the letter and then do a recast and see what it looks like in 4 months. So
yes,
it's 9 o'clock, Libby. Do you want to go ahead and start recording and we'll start this little session?
It's recording. It looks like actually I just got a notification that we've reached the max attendees. I didn't realize the number of people that were going to be on here, so I set it up as a meeting instead of a webinar. So I do apologize for that. It looks like maybe not everyone is here that wants to be here, so I am very sorry about that.
No problem. Alicia, if you would please send out the at least dial-in access code. Let doctors know that it's been maxed out, but at least they can dial in and listen.
Patrick, I'll go ahead and drop off. I'll look it down on a recorded basis later.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll get that sent out, and then I'll actually drop off as well.
Thank you, Alicia. Hello, Dr. Jim. I'm here for my initial consultation.
All right, so we're ready to go?
Yes.
We're good. Okay, great. So the first thing I want to mention is, guys, is that we've got a whole library of cases that we review, and typically the average case takes about 20 minutes. So when you're reviewing a case, if this report doesn't help you consolidate the amount of time that you have, then I'm not doing a good enough job of teaching you how to interpret this report. It should really help you to condense things. Now, Patrick has agreed to let me use. I got people clicking in here on my thing. Let me get rid of that. So Patrick's agreed to let me be to be the guinea pig for tonight, and that's great. I think Patrick's a perfect example of just how complex somebody can get with their chemistry and his bio. You know, if you'll look at his hormones are pretty optimized. You know, probably at the early stage of getting his pellets. But when you look at his case, you really start to see, you know, a lot that's going on. And so, Patrick, do you want me to go through the questionnaire, or would you rather I just go through the summary? Because I'm going to share all those things you're answering, and it builds to where the problem is. So it's up to you.
However you would do a normal consultation.
Well, okay. So I'm going to go through the questionnaire real quickly. And so the purpose of the questionnaire is for you guys to get an idea quickly of what's going on with the individual. And you can scroll through this quickly, and you can see. So Patrick has more than 1 or 2 glasses of wine. He's under chronic stress, does have some anxiousness or anxiety. Patrick, is it mainly just chronic stress, or do you actually feel anxious at times?
I wake up at about 2 o'clock in the morning with anxiety attacks.
So we know that Patrick's nervous system is pretty, you know, pretty pro-sympathetic tone. And so the next thing is what about this, Patrick? You got tested for the MTHFR gene SNP, so that's you've known about that for a while. And then the rest of these questions are really you're kind of answering no, other than you have a beta blocker that you take. So that's
like 2.5.
Yeah, and so we've got you're on some med for your blood pressure. Now the blood pressure you sent me, I added into this questionnaire so that you'll see it on the report, and then your heart rate as well is also added into the report. So let's keep going here and see what else comes up. You get headaches if you go too long without eating, or are relieved by sweets and alcohol or alcohol. So does that happen very often?
Maybe every other day.
Every other day. So pretty much, then you may have trouble with regulating your blood sugar. You got to get there's a echo backdrop on this.
Julie, you've got to mute Julie Seymour.
Hey, there we go. Perfect. And then getting tired after you eat a big meal. Does that happen fairly regularly too?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
So, now we know that Patrick, it's your blood sugar's probably trending up, and that we know from your biometrics that your weight is over ideal. And then how many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
I start the morning with a very large green, probably 3 cups of coffee, large green iced tea, and probably 1 or 2 more before noon.
Before noon. Okay. So a fair amount of caffeine. In all of this, you'll be reviewing before you even, so for guys, when you're doing this, you'll review this questionnaire before Patrick even sits down. But I just kind of want to get, you guys, for the sake of seeing where the report is going to go, I want you to see these answers. Short-term memory worse than it used to be?
I'm sorry? No.
Is your short-term memory worse than it used to be? Right, exactly. Yeah. What'd you say again?
I'm sorry? Yes.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
I seem to forget words that I should know.
Yeah, and is that recent, or is that something that you've always done?
No, a couple last 2 or 3 months probably.
Okay. And then feeling overcommitted throughout the day, and then we already talked about feeling like there's too much stress. And then what about eating 50% or more of your calories after 5 p.m.? Do you find that you eat at the time you get home and you won't stop?
No, we just eat really late. I don't eat a lot during the day. I eat very late, actually. I eat very well for breakfast and lunch, and then dinner is usually my big meal.
Okay. All right. And handshake and tremble.
Yes.
Okay. And then your heart rate at 90 beats a minute or above at rest. So in your questionnaire, or in your heart rate, you were at 85 or so when you took it. It's not a morning heart rate, but in general, your heart rate's up over 80 pretty consistently?
Yes.
It is, okay. And let's keep going. Let's see. Belch, burp frequently, and then feel full for an extended period of time afterwards, after eating?
Yes.
Okay. And then stomach pain worse with emotional duress or upset?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So these are all, so if you look, guys, these are all things that Patrick's answering yes to. So we know that he's under excessive stress. We know that his body is he's dysglycemic because of his response. We have an idea that he's becoming somewhat of a vasculopath, right? Because he's under stress, he's overweight, his blood pressure's up, his heart rate's up, he's losing vagal tone. So these are the things you're thinking when you answer these questions. Breathe through the mouth. So you were told you had apnea as well.
Correct.
And do you use a nasal? You use a CPAP machine or a BiPAP machine, or?
I was ordered one. I just can't use it. I find sleeping on my side, I don't need it.
All right.
Hogwash!
I
agree.
I love these group inputs now, man.
Thank you,
That was
Doreen.
good.
Jim, I could not help myself.
Exactly. So, you know, sleep is a problem. You're waking up at 2:30 in the morning. We know that that means that your sympathetic drive is, honestly, this is where
Jim, you're breaking up.
period of time, but eventually it starts to filter down into kind of the cardiopulmonary or the cardiopulmonary neurovascular network where you're really starting to lose control of, you know, kind of your well-being. I mean, yeah, your numbers are significant. You know, obviously we talked about the sleep. And so I think we get the picture now. I mean, I can move on from here and get to it, but you do have ringing and buzzing in your ears. Your blood pressure still is a little bit elevated, even being on medication. And you cough, often have to clear your throat, but you are a smoker, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously the, you know, vascular issues around smoking also are applying, inflammatory signaling that goes on applies. And so when we look at this, you know, you're painting a picture right now. Now, I know you're much more proactive. You're off all your supplements, but let's take a look at what your symptoms actually show. Now, a couple little clues here that are interesting is that you have bad breath and that you also have some right-sided discomfort under your rib cage. So the whole liver, gallbladder, and distension is going on. And that's something that we're thinking, you want to start thinking about as well. You're starting to add up like a Med-S case, like metabolic syndrome. So for metabolic syndrome, it's pre-hypertensive, but you're actually hypertensive, pre-diabetic, and you know, categorized would be obese, but you're kind of not quite obese, but you've gained weight, and the way your eating patterns are, and the way you respond to, you know, getting headaches that are relieved by food, that shows you're very dysinsulinemic, meaning that your blood sugars aren't really being regulated. And the big thing that causes plaquing in your arteries, of course, is blood sugar dips and rises. So it's hyperglycemia, and so that's what you're putting, you know, your body's being put at risk at. So let's go to your report and see how this scores out. So, you know, there's 5 major areas, Patrick, of concern for your body. So you've got, there's 5 triads or 5 centers of influence in your body. So each one of them has kind of a meaning and a purpose for how you're going to perform. If you look at your questionnaire, the higher the score, the more either the symptoms that you wrote down or the labs that were drawn for you are adding up to create an imbalance in your body. So when you look at your cardiopulmonary neurovascular score, it's at 790. It's actually showing us that that's the top area of concern for your health. And it kind of makes sense because your blood pressure is still up, your heart rate's still up, you're not sleeping at night. That's all the neurovascular and kind of cardio-endothelial complex, meaning how your vessels are working, how you're responding to duress. And so this is scoring at the top of the heap, and it's because the 2 triads below it, meaning that your adrenal, thyroid, pancreas, which is your triads of how you make energy, how you respond to stress, how you burn fats, how you regulate blood sugar. So triad 1 is your, you know, it's how you make energy. Triad 2 is kind of how you take in nutrients and how your body responds in terms of your immunologic drive. So when triad 1 and triad 2 are both really high, meaning that you've got a lot of stress, your blood sugars are trending high, your thyroid hormone is a little off, you know, and you're medicated for thyroid right now, and also that the immune system, sleep disturbances are running really strong. When both of those are running high, it shifts your risk as those problems are loading up in your body to this 3rd triad, the cardiopulmonary neurovascular triad. So it's the old story, and you could ask any, you know, I think, you know, you could ask any of the docs, people that are under chronic stress, that have blood sugar fluctuations and smoke, and their thyroid goes low, unmedicated, tend to end up as vasculopaths. They end up with their cardiometabolic risk going up. And so, we're going to want to jump on this right away. Of course, relatively speaking, when you look at your liver, lymph, kidney, and testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, those readings are really low in comparison. If you looked at the top three are almost identical in scoring. And for me, most likely what I would do, I'll show you how I would do this, is I'm going to work on the top two triads with you, and I'm going to change your diet around for getting the gut under control. But I'm going to mainly focus on just working on these first two triads to make a difference in your health. So
it's interesting because my cortisol pattern.
Well, your cortisol pattern is a flattened. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. You have a flattened cortisol curve, and flattened cortisol curves are the single most predictive number that you can pull out for future cardiometabolic risk. So
I'm just saying it's interesting. I've always been in range. I've always been in range for the cortisol pattern, which is interesting, even though it appears flattened out, which I've never talked about. But my cortisol patterns always appeared to be within range.
Yeah, but they're flattened. So you have your morning cortisol response is low. So when you look at your cortisol curve, it's flat, and a flattened cortisol curve, more than any other single thing you look at, is associated with future cardiometabolic risk. So it's actually playing out that because your sleep pattern is disturbed and your cortisol curve is off now, that's creating this change in your cardiometabolic wiring. So harder to get your blood pressure under control. Your heart rate, tends to be too high, and that's because you've lost what's called your diurnal pattern for cortisol. The morning high, dropping in the afternoon, dropping in the evening, and even though you're in range at your nighttime cortisol, Patrick, your nighttime cortisol is high. And I've got that. I want to talk about that when we get to the graph, so that people will see it. But when you look at
because it's interesting, when I have a good night's sleep, my blood pressure is lower, and I do feel better the next day.
There you go.
The problem is most nights I just get a terrible night's sleep.
Exactly, and that's what one of the first things we're going to do with you, Patrick, is work on your sleep. We're going to work on your stress response, work on your sleep, work on. I'm going to do some breathing technique. Actually, I'm going to get you situated with doing a heart math, kind of remapping your vagal tone so that we start to retrain your nervous system while we're actually using different nutrients that are going to dampen your stress response. The biggest mistake people make on trying to get a good night's sleep is they just take stuff at night. So, when you're under a lot of stress like you are, you're running a company, you're busy, you're creative, you have to dampen your stress response all day long and then give something for sleep. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be creative. It just means you're going to be more calm. You won't feel as much anxiety and panic loading in the night. So it's really, so intuitively, if you get a good night's sleep, you feel way better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So this is so to give people relevance, anything over 500 means it's meaningful. So when you have 700s, it's a significant shift that needs attention. The only caveat I'm making here is that because Triad 1 and Triad 2 are both really high, it's driving Triad 3. And Doreen, since you're online and we are doing this for education, Doreen, how often do you see this pattern end up being exactly like I expressed it, where the adrenals and thyroid and blood sugar disruptions, along with the immune system regulation issues, ends up driving cardiometabolic risk in people?
100%.
It's almost right. It's always. So this is fortunately, Patrick, I'm glad we're doing this with you, because I think we've caught on to a really some great things on the front side. We're going to be able to help you. So let's go to the next page. So if I had to say to you, Patrick, how do you feel? Like, how well are you? The whole purpose of the Metabolic Code Vitality Index is to say, how far is Patrick away from being well? And so right now, according to our readings, you're not feeling the best that you could feel. And in fact, if you were honest, you probably would say, you know what? I get through my days because I've got a very strong mind. Is that accurate or no?
Very true.
Yeah, because if you just relied on how you felt, you listed out of 167 possible questions. I actually added them up. This is kind of outside of the what I would do with a patient, but you answered yes to 45 out of 167 questions. So you have a lot of symptoms that you're living with every day, but it's your passion that drives you through your day. What we really want to do is start to make that passion translate into how well you can feel. So when you feel great, that means that you don't have to just rely on passion anymore. You can rely on efficiency in your body to help you get through your day, and you can think more clearly and sleep better and not feel as panicked, and your digestion is better. So in this particular page, this is just showing how far are you away from really being at your peak, because all of these risks are just different risks based on your lab values, how quickly you'd be aging, what your cardiometabolic efficiency is, how good you're going to keep your brain intact. Each one of these areas is just showing what's your area of efficiency. So the next step is just looking at your lab values. And so if you look at this, Patrick, actually what I would say is you always see people who drive themselves really hard. You're kind of now on the backside of being an incredibly hard worker. So your morning cortisol has tanked, so it's very low. And your other cortisols are actually all low. So this is kind of that flattening out and losing some of your cortisol drive, which is actually indicative of when you start to say, hey, I'm losing a little bit of my memory. And this is when you lose sympathetic tone because you've retrained your nervous system, basically. And that's why your heart rate's up, but yet you don't quite have the drive anymore to regulate your morning and night pattern for your cortisol. So pretty significant. I mean, what is holding in here? Your DH is, it's trending low. Your CM level is actually holding in. So you have a lot of resiliency to you. If you look at your thyroid, now were you on your thyroid? Did you take your thyroid the morning of the lab test?
I've been off thyroid as well. The only thing I was on since November was the testosterone and the bistolic. All the other armor that I was on and everything else was off.
So we have to look into, because you haven't been on your thyroid hormone. Your free T3 is kind of high. It's out of bounds. And yes, there's some variability to it, but you are reporting that your heart rate is elevated. So we're going to have to figure out how we can start to get your thyroid hormones to start to harmonize a little bit better. And we've got some suggestions on what to do there. And then if you look at your numbers related to the pancreas, your blood sugar at 95 means you have a 60% risk of being a diabetic in the next decade. So your blood sugars are trending high. Your hemoglobin A1C is trending high. Even though it's still in green, it's above normal. And then your IGF-1 is trending low. So, this would be, IGF-1 is a reflection of growth hormone. And so there's opportunities to try to help bring that up just to help in terms of your resiliency, in terms of healing, recovery, aging, and there's some interesting things you can do for that, of course. So you can consider things like Samorelin if you want. And then potassium is at 4.1. So usually when potassium's dropping out like this, it's because you're spilling it because your blood sugar's off. So and your blood sugar at fasting is too high, and your hemoglobin A1C is a little elevated. So you're going to spill potassium, spill magnesium, and actually hold on to sodium a little bit. And why this is important, of course, is that potassium is also a predictor for future diabetes risk, but also really important in terms of electrolytes. And you're trending low there. So do you get muscle cramps at all, Patrick?
Yes.
You do get muscle cramps. Yeah, you can kind of tell.
I mean, my hand will cramp up and just go into like a spasm.
Yeah. potassium on you is kind of low normal, and then your magnesium was kind of low normal as well, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, if we look here, even though gut immune brain came up really high on you, Patrick, but when we looked through the questionnaire, a lot of it had to do with the brain and sleep pattern problems. And then, of course, your homocysteine was elevated. But, you know, even though if you look at your gut readings, your C-reactive protein is a little bit elevated, and then your eosinophils and monocytes, that's showing that your immune system is starting to get chronically cranked up a little bit because those numbers are just trending a little bit. So when you're insulin resistant and you're a smoker, you know, smokers have higher CRPs, smokers activate their immune system more, it tends to create a little bit of ground state inflammation, and that's what this is showing. But in your case, this would probably be the next stage of work I would work on. We would work on your gut after we get your nervous system under control. And when we look at the cardiovascular network, your LDLs are at almost 160. Your blood pressure at 130/85, medicated, and your heart rate at 87. All of these, because you're medicated and these numbers are elevated and you're reporting sleep disturbances and all the other things that have added up in the report, that's why all these points are kind of shoving in this direction. So you, Patrick, on the headaches, do you ever do your blood pressure during the day to kind of see how your headache, you know, what's going on with your blood pressure, or do you just kind of take your pill and assume
No, I
it's
know my
okay?
blood pressure elevates during the day because my staff often looks at me and asks me why I'm so flushed. I'm so red.
Oh, okay.
And if I were to pull my blood pressure, then I know I'm like sitting 150 over like 95.
Yeah. So we really, you know, one of the areas we really have to focus on. Look, it's easy to say this, Patrick. It's easy because it's real popular in, you know, quote, kind of integrative or functional or whatever medicine. We're going to start on your gut. The reality is we really have to get your blood pressure under control. You know, we got to get your blood pressure under control and your nervous system under control because those things are life-threatening. You know, if you got a little bit of bloating and distension, we can work on that with your diet, drop some weight, help your blood pressure to come down. But it's really, what the report has done a great job of doing is really showing us where the big alarm is for you. And you know, you said it beautifully. You know, your blood pressure, you feel it going up in the day. You do get headaches. You do get, you know, buzzing in your ears. You're medicated for your blood pressure, and yet your heart rate's still too high, and your thyroid's still kind of stuck at that high T3, which might be contributing to that pulse rate of yours. So we got to figure these things out a step at a time. Now let's look here. For your liver, your mean corpuscle volume is high and your red cell width is high. So what I take out of the liver readings for you is that your homocysteine was high. You need B6, B12, and folate, and probably some B2. So you need B vitamins to help regulate your homocysteine. But more importantly, your red blood cells are too wide. The volume's too big, so you can't really carry oxygen to your brain the way you're supposed to, and you can't get it into the periphery like you're supposed to. And that's kind of what starts to set up problems like peripheral vascular disease, when free radical damage or the rate of rusting is in your peripheral arteries and microcapillaries. And when you can't get the oxygen to your brain, that is what triggers a lot of oxidative damage and triggers endothelial dysfunction. Now, you do have something working against you over and above that. Is, you know, you smoke. So when you're a smoker, you're gonna tend to trigger more endothelial damage. But for you, it kind of doubles because you don't have red blood cells that are the right size.
So you're saying my family history of vascular dementia, heart attacks, and high glucose levels doesn't help either.
They're all playing out for you right now. It's what's actually. But all this, I mean, I firmly believe, Patrick, that all this it is changeable. That you can work.
You need to stop smoking.
There you go. I love these group discussions. That's exactly right, and you're being straightforward on it. That's spot on.
Hey, at least I was entirely honest about my questionnaire, guys.
Yeah, Patrick, You know what? You've got, I don't know how many people are on this line, but I bet every last one of us have got us, you know, we got our arms around you now, man. We're going to make sure you succeed. So anyway, you understand that with your liver, the red blood cells you're making aren't really the most efficient ones to help you to nourish your body. So it's because you can't carry oxygen, they're too big, and you can't carry toxins away. So that's the big thing there. Your white blood cell count is elevated, and that's a big issue. And in fact, you know what another big issue is? I have to plug my laptop in, guys. I'm on 4%. There we go. I just now your white blood cell count, Patrick, in lymph, your white blood cell count at 8.3 range, family history of blood glucose. I'd be watching your white blood cell count because for me that's a little bit too high at baseline, and so that's just a note. I mean, it'd be something we'd want to watch together. Now let's take a look at your kidneys. You know, and actually, you know, the kidney points, you're pretty decent here. I mean, just, and I'm a little surprised that the kidneys are holding up great. That's okay. And then let's go here and look at, so your testosterone is, your total is out of bounds. Now, here's where this gets a little off. We should discuss this while everybody's on here so they understand. We have to create a range, and if it's above the range, I know some of you have different ranges on what you think are good or not, but if we're going to create this report, you're just going to have to explain to people if they're right at the top range and you want them there because of the way they are. Curve of people, this is showing your testosterone's great, Patrick. You really, what's interesting is this kind of brings up the real value of what you're doing now with what we're going to implement. Is it you're being well with your testosterone, right? I mean, you feel pretty okay. Like I look at your estrogens, you're not making a ton of estrogen. Your estradiol is up a little bit, but I mean, when you look at it, your estrogen loads up a little bit, but relative to your test, it's not bad. But I think we kind of get this thought that if we get that testosterone dialed in, that means we're going to be healthy. And you kind of, this is at the bottom of your concern. You have all these issues that are really you need medical management. You have vascular issues. You do have, nervous system issues that are,
Jim, you're breaking up a bit. Can you get closer to the microphone, please? Jim, you're breaking up a little bit. I can't hear you.
So your symptoms at 540 and 515, 390, the biggest symptoms you have are one.
Jim, you're breaking up a little bit. We can't hear you. Jim? Hang on, everybody. I'm texting Jim right now to see whether or not he can get back online. All right, so Doreen, over to you.
You can't get Jim? Jim is nowhere to be found?
I think we've lost his voice connection. He's still controlling the screen, but I haven't heard him back yet on voice.
My concern, Patrick, for you would be to make sure that you get your sleep apnea addressed, because the intermittent waking up or the deoxygenation that's occurring is stimulating your sympathetic nervous system, which is driving that imbalance in your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah,
So
I think I have a mild case of sleep apnea, but I don't think it's dramatic.
it doesn't matter.
Well, the thing is that when I wake because of either extraordinarily bad dreams, so I'm usually in a very deep sleep, or I wake and I notice right after I wake I have intense surges of anxiety. I don't know what it is, but it's like, a lightning bolt going through my system.
Yeah.
But I'm not waking from a fact of lack of snoring, and Max would tell you that I do snore. I don't snore dramatically lately. It's really more related to probably higher blood pressure at night, laying flat, severe dreams, or these anxiety things that hit me that wake me up like lightning bolts running through my body.
Well, that's why switching your blood pressure medicine and taking your blood pressure medicine in the evening, because the most important prognostic indicator of myocardial infarction is nighttime blood pressure.
I didn't know that. See, I was told to take the BP medicine in the morning.
No. If your blood pressure is high at night, then your sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive, and your parasympathetic nervous system, which should be the predominant system, is not working. So your renin-angiotensin system, which is why an ACE inhibitor or an ARB would be better for you, but getting you to sleep and calming the CNS inflammation. If Ken Orbeck is on the line, he can chime in. Calming the CNS inflammation is going to be absolutely key to getting you better. Giving you cardiac supplements and all of that is not going to make you better.
Yeah, I have to feign some level of ignorance because I really don't understand. I mean, I work with you guys all the time, and I would love to have a discussion with people on, correlated causal statistics, but I don't understand everything that I am often told. I do know that, I mean, I know that
your sleep apnea may improve if you get off the beta blocker and get on a more up-to-date modern blood pressure control like an ACE with a mild diuretic.
No diuretic. No diuretic. He needs
cutting back. No, you're wrong. 6.2.
No, you're wrong.
Is the best.
Well,
actually,
what I do right now is I take guys?
Giving up alcohol will clear it.
Actually, Bistolic is a very, very good. Bistolic and carvedilol are the two beta blockers that have been shown to increase nitric oxide and to alter endothelial dysfunction. So those are the only two blood pressure medicines that have been approved and have been shown in documented studies. Now, the most recent trial that's come out has shown indapamide or chlorthalidone to be a much better diuretic than hydrochlorothiazide. Hydrochlorothiazide offers nothing to blood pressure control. And in reality,
chlorthalidone's great.
And in reality, what you need is to calm your renin-angiotensin aldosterone system. That's going to be
I don't know what that is.
That's the sleep mechanism. That's your sympathetic nervous system that's on fire out there. So I agree, and if Jim would get back on the line, because we can't move any of this forward, the key is, number one, to get you to sleep and to calm your brain. Those are going to be the two most important parts when you look at this.
I'd agree with that. I mean, to be able to sleep, I mean, actually, probably 1 out of 7 nights I get 7 hours in a row, but most nights I'm totally exhausted by 10 and I'm awake by 2.
Yeah, and so that's what's driving. Jim, thank God you're back. We can't move anything. Jim, we were talking about.
I don't know what happened, guys. I mean, it's like everything died, and then I'm holy crap. So anyway, let's go back. Doreen, I know you've been explaining this to Patrick. Let me move this thing forward.
Have you been listening?
No, I have not.
Oh, Jim, we just talked about.
I went on the telephone.
Okay, we just did sympathetic, parasympathetic, and working on sleep and that thing. That's all we talked about.
Right. So as we go through, you guys can see. You can still see my screen, I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just getting back to this, so the balance show up with each triad. And so as someone gets better, those arrows drop off, the values drop off, the numbers get lower, and people see progress, and we can calculate percentages of improvement, really show people how they're doing based on all these different ways that we've layered the data, the numbering, all those types of things. So that's pretty much what that does. Now, Patrick, if you have any questions on lab values, you can read through any of this portion of the report, and it'll explain to you what each one of those lab values are. So after you leave the office, so if you're in my office, I can say to you, after you leave my office, you have any questions and you don't remember what cortisol is, all you have to do is look at the report. You can look it up, and and it'll refresh your memory as to why we're focusing on stress and cortisol and sleep and these other lab values that have shifted. So, and it's really been a resource, just so there's a feedback loop, guys. I mean, I've been going to doctors' offices and running these reports and watching them do these reports, and the patients love them because they leave there and they actually read them and they kind of start to understand what you're actually trying to accomplish for them. So, I'm just going to go through here, Patrick. You can read these at your discretion. But I want to get to what's next which is the product, because yours, you probably had the most product recommended of any report I've ever seen so far, and I want to explain why. And you know what? But honestly, Patrick, it's because it's all of the things that were coming together in your world colliding. And so if I do 5 years out, let's say we don't, if you didn't do anything about your health, but 5 years out doesn't look so pretty. So that's why we want to, we're going to get on it right away. So here's your cortisol, your urinary cortisol pattern that mapped out. So you can see how that morning is dipped.
Did you move your screen? My screen is good. Jim, did you move your screen? Because my screen's frozen. Did you move your screen? Because my screen's frozen.
I did move my screen.
I think we're all still looking at the testosterone page.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's going to catch up. Let's see. So you mean testosterone, the explanation of testosterone?
Yeah, I'm still looking at lab results T5, which is page 11.
Okay. Okay. Well, how do I refresh this?
Libby. Well, the good news is that we did send out the reports to everybody, so if they actually can pull up the reports that were sent to them, they'll actually see the flattened out.
Okay. Well, if they want to know, we're on page 20. We're on page 25 of the report. The only difference that you sent out that I sent out is that you sent me your blood pressures and heart rate today, and so we added it in, and it shifted the scores to where cardiopulmonary went from number 3 to number 1.
Yeah.
So I just felt in that because of your heart rate and because of your blood pressure, it added more points to the scoring. And Doreen, I think you'll find that pretty incredible that we added those two variables. And when you see the picture here, Docs, it literally took that data and shifted the order of the priority to that cardiopulmonary, it's where it should be. It should be at number 1. And so if you look at page 25, you see flattening of the cortisol curve. Your morning cortisol is way too low, and then you don't really have a good slope the rest of the day. It just kind of flattens out. You end up too high at night. So even though on the report you're kind of low, then you're kind of in normal the rest of the day, it's the way that it's configured, because you're at the very high end, kind of higher end normal with your night cortisol. And so you don't really just continue to drop like you're appropriately supposed to. So this is a great learning tool for you, Patrick. And then the next thing is okay, what do I do about it? So for you, this is, I mean, absolutely. Most people, all 5 triads fit on 1 page. In your case, all 5 triads took 2 pages, all right? But you're having trouble sleeping, you're anxious, your blood pressure is elevated, your lipids are off, your endothelium is off, you have a MTHFR gene SNP, and your morning cortisol is low. So if you look at the suggestions, alpha-lipoic acid to help regulate your blood sugar and to help with free radical damage makes a lot of sense. CoQ10 because of the medication that you're on. The 2 next things, this is where, if I'm talking to you, Patrick, does the cough you have really bother you? It means it bother you in the morning when you first get up, and does your throat, you clear your throat a lot during the course of the day?
Not really.
Not too bad. I probably would hold off on giving you the cough syrup then, the ginger cough syrup to act as an expector. And if it's just something that's occasional, as we clean up your chemistry, I think you'll see that cough will go down, especially as you're going to, suggest, as we've suggested, stop
my coughing is, my coughing is often, Jim, my coughing is often due to a constant postnasal drip.
Yeah, and so, that brings up this whole point of because you had a constant postnasal drip and because you answered a lot of questions on triads 2, meaning your gut immune brain, that a lot of sinus problems are related to gut health. And so what we're going to do to start is we'll get you on an elimination diet. So we're going to get you off of foods you're allergic to, start to count your carbs, and that's going to be step 1. Because we're going to be busy right now getting your magnesium pool built up, getting your adding in aged garlic extract, which is great even in people with resistant hypertension. 3 studies have come out showing aged garlic extract helps with resistant hypertension. So it's going to remodel the endothelium. It's going to be very helpful and beneficial for remodeling the inner lining of your arteries and help your blood pressure to start to settle in. And then, of course, it's deciding what's the right adrenal support to use because you kind of are in a mixed bag. You're not high enough in the morning, and even in midday, you're kind of not that high, but you ramp up at night. So you almost have an inverted cortisol curve. What we're suggesting is that you take Adrenavise, and then in addition to that, you take something for your nervous system, Relora in it, and that's down here at the next page. And then the next thing,
by the way, Jim,
yeah,
Jim, by the way, your screens are moving again.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Let me show you guys the cortisol curve real quick then. Since we're online and we're doing this for a teaching tool, it's just taking a little more time, but I think we should show it just so they know what it looks like. So this is kind of your urinary cortisol profile and how it maps out. And as you can tell, Patrick,
I will tell you one thing, Jim. I've done my cortisols every 4 months on both urine and saliva for like 4 years. My cortisol curve, that is the newest one, even on urine, that's been that low. Mine has always been higher, but again, it might correspond to the other like newer symptoms I've had the last 3 or 4 months.
That's
like
exactly right,
remember crap.
Right. No, that's exactly right. At one point, your cortisol flattens out, and this is when your heart rate goes up. This is when your metabolic risk goes up, or your blood pressure goes up. So we're kind of catching you right at this transition point or inflection point with your physiology. That's actually what's going on. I mean, you make this transition to where your chemistry starts to really devolve, and that's kind of what this is. This flattening of the curve with the higher, if you look at the end of it, you're kind of close, you're midway on your number at night. And it'd be better if that was coming downward more, obviously. So for you, let me get back to here. The big things that we need to do are work on your stress response, getting you to sleep, start to remodel your vascular network a little bit. And so alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10 because of depletion. I mean, I like red yeast rice because of what it's going to do for remodeling your lipids a little bit. We didn't do an NMR lipo profile on you, but I could see where I'd change your diet first and wouldn't give the Cortra. And this is where you have an option as, you know, if you're the doc and you're listening here, you could go, you know what, I think I'm going to hold off on that, see how they do in a diet. But in general, you're going to say, I want you to do the green product. And then the brown is adrenal support, chromium for blood sugar, get the DHEA pull up because it was low normal, and then use the multivitamin that works for blood sugar support. And then the last is Relora and using something to get your thyroid, that T3, to come down. So the Mitacor to help that. I would wait on, you could choose, if you know you want to work on gut, you could go for gut as well. But for the most part, work on thyroid, adrenal, pancreas balance, knock down the, get and start, and then, you know, track weight loss. Probably somebody like Patrick, if you can get them back in and check them in 2 months to see how their blood pressure is, because it's a little different if they're coming to you and they're doing this as well. It might not be a bad idea, but otherwise, you're going to track them, you know, over 4 months, and they're going to be reporting back to you what my blood pressure is, what my weight's like, how's my energy, am I sleeping better, and so that, you know, so you stop at those first 2 triads. Now, if you want to add more, meaning, hey, I want to burn off your estrogen because I think your total estrogens are a little up. That's your, you know, once again, that's your prerogative. You might decide that by breaking their insulin resistance and straightening out his cortisol response, that Patrick's estrogens might fall in line a little bit better. So that actually kind of, you know, the thing I wanted to get across, this is his, I mean, I'm being honest, guys. Patrick's case is probably one of the most complicated ones that I've seen, you know, recently overall. But part of it's because he stopped using his med or his nutrients. The other part of it is there's been changes. Patrick's mentioning, hey, I've seen changes these last 4 months, and the cortisol curve is matching it, the biometrics are matching it, and now the labs are starting to match it. Now that took about 45 minutes with all the disruption and not me being on board. It's going to take you about, for the average person, and we've got a bunch of these logged on our website that you guys can listen to, it takes about 25 minutes to go through this, maybe 20. Tops 30, you know, if you're interviewing the patient and you're giving them the report. It's not a long event. Then, of course, I'll just show them this, Patrick. Then we're going to talk about it. Is just so you guys know, all the stuff that I just talked to him about, he has a handout to read on all of it. So go ahead, Patrick. I'm sorry.
No, like I said, you know, being a patient of Dr. Jeff for 12 years, I mean, I will say I wasn't on many of the adrenal products, but I was on the Cortra, and I was on the Omegas, I was on the CoQs, I was on multivitamins. I had, you know, I was on 2 grams of Armor. So obviously I probably did this to myself in many ways, but I wanted to see a baseline. But it's also kind of me. Well, first and foremost, I love the report. It doesn't surprise me that my hormones are balanced. I mean, that's really what, right, you know, I've been focused on for 12 years, but it's the other effects that have more recently started to, you know, display themselves with the anxiety, the sleep disruption, this constant feeling of like having different parts of my body drip, as it were. You know, are things that, you know, for me looking at it, it's like, okay, so I got to take all the green and the blue products, or green and brown. That makes sense. Right. What I really like is your suggestion that even on the private label Body Logic MD products, I'm going to put, you know, each of the different triads on the product. So it makes more sense to me as a patient, reminding me why I'm taking that thing.
Gmail, like every time we're on our trip. I'm on an account, but I'm going to put it under your very own email, okay?
Okay, I'm not sure who needs to mute out, but okay.
But Patrick, that's exactly right, is that the more you can reinforce, I'm taking the blue, I'm taking the green, you know, and it's because they get these handouts that explain what the green is, what are the brown, you know, supplements. It really helps reinforce why they're doing things. And the fact why they're feeling better, you know, hopefully they're going to be feeling better, which they should be.
So what I'm going to ask you to do, Jim, is you're going to send me a list of the supplements that you absolutely want me on. When we're going to do a retest, you also mentioned you wanted to put me on a specific diet, which I know we don't have for all the Body Electric MD doctors yet, but at some point will. But the
Correct.
elimination diet, and then we're going to start that right away. And then I'm going to reschedule for this, so we'll do a recast in 4 months.
That's right. Yeah, and once again, we'll go through. It's a little bit different because we've got everybody here. I wanted to stop and make some explanations, but Patrick, we'll recap this so you succinctly know, you know, what it is you're doing, and maybe we'll even record that one again. But we kind of had this first time with everybody on board. I wanted to, you know, did want to have shell shock.
Yeah, I would like to. Maybe I can send out to the doctors, you know, the list of supplements. In fact, you know, not only the supplements, but beyond the diet myself. Like Jeff had me on, you know, 2 grams of Armor. He had me on DHEA. He has me on recommended Smolin. A lot of different aspects. So we'll be able to combine those all together with what you're recommending.
Absolutely.
And they'll come back and look at it.
Jim, is the lifestyle portal part of this?
We're working through all that with Patrick. He's reviewed a new lifestyle portal. We've been working on it. Kind of letting the cat out of the bag, but we've got a whole program that we're working on for all that. Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't. Sorry.
No,
Doreen, it's a great question. We're going to be bringing it in phases. The one thing is that, you know, like Jim says, we're excited about, you know, they're running 300 reports a month right now, but I mean, with a couple thousand reports with 65 educated doctors, I mean, we want the feedback. I know Jim wants the feedback, so we can look at the structure of the report. This report has already been changed just by a few doctors looking at my report I sent out and how Jim's ordering the supplements and putting the, you know, the greens together, the blues and all that kind of stuff. So big part is going to be getting feedback, but yeah, we're going to be working on some really neat stuff on lifestyle portal, on some patient portal applications, that stuff that they brought to us that are like, okay, this is going to finally work for a diet program for Body Electric MD.
Right, and I just want to emphasize. I mean, I've only run several hundred of these reports and have worked people up like this. I know a lot of you guys know for a lot of years. And by the way, 20A and 20B, I know that there's a group discount available now for Patrick. I believe you worked that for the Body Logic MD doc. So, you know, half price, you know, $12.50 I think.
If they sign up for this year. Yeah, if they sign up during this year, Body Electric MD doctors will be able to do 20A and 20B for 50% off for $1,250 rather than the normal $2,500.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like once again, guys, the big thing is just if you listen to all of Patrick's signs, symptoms, all the different things that were going on, the triads did end up picking up between the biometrics, the lab data, and his subjective survey. It did rank him where he needed to be. And it'll be close. You're all, you know, smart docs. You're at the tops in the field. I know, but it's just a tool to help you get there quicker and understand where that person's at. So that's the real purpose of it. And then develop what's the right rationale so that the patient can remember all the great stuff you tell them. Now the report tells them. Is there anything else, Patrick, you wanted me to go over?
No, I don't think so. Is there any questions from the physicians?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you go to the page where you have the supplement recommendations?
Got it.
So under your adrenal supplement, you're recommending Adrenovive, which is typically, I mean, it contains phosphatidylserine, and it's typically the supplement that I use to drop cortisols. And I'm just curious why the report chose to use something that would drop cortisols in somebody that has a problem with low cortisol.
Well, because his low cortisol is because he's been over-revved. And when you really use phosphatidylserine, what you're trying to do is you're trying to dampen cortisol response. So what we're doing is you're giving them this in the evening in particular, so you can try to start to get that cortisol to come down. And in the morning, because he says he panics and he's got a lot of this panic that loads pretty quickly, that you're using that to try to buffer basically the amygdala. You could decide, look, you could decide, you know what, I don't want to give that one. I want to give something different based on my clinical knowledge. So you could say, and why we have adrenal cortex in here, just straight adrenal cortex, is we're trying to dampen the stress response but build a little bit of the adrenal reserve back at the same time. You might say, hey, look, I want to give ashwagandha. I want to give, you probably don't want to give straight adrenal extract, right? And a guy that's, like this, because he's already sympathetic dominant. So, but you may decide, hey, I just want to give the dampening, because even though his cortisol curve is a little off, he's sympathetic dominant. His heart rate's up, his blood pressure's up. You really don't want to give him a lot of via the tiger.
No, yeah, I just didn't know. So what I would probably normally do is just give some adaptogenic support and then throw some steering in at night.
That's good. Perfect. That's what's nice about this, is you're able to adjust it. So that's a totally rational way to look at it. I think once again, depending on what the experience level is of a practitioner too, you may go in here and say, yeah, you know what, I like this, but I don't like that. So I'm not going to give that. But it's just starting to give a guideline for you. You can put in, you'll be able to select other adrenal products instead of this, right out of the list. So you're not. What I don't want you to think is that, hey, this is the way you have to do it. It's, here are the things to consider now based on your level of experience, just like what you stated. You might go, hey, I think I want to use an adaptogen in the morning, and then see how their blood pressure plays out. But if his blood pressure is trending high end of the day, like he said, it picking up that he needs to dampen his stress response, because basically what's happening is morning's low, but then he shoots right up to normal. Is you're really trying to get him to sleep at night so his cortisol will recorrect, and you're trying to get him to not react and be quite so cortisol dominant when his blood pressure is being up there in the day. But your point is absolutely valid, and you could do it that way, 100%. It's just different ways of looking at it. Go ahead.
The other question is for Patrick. So you got Kyolic, which I know is one of your faves, but that's not on a formulary. So is that something that that Max can get Nutralogics?
You actually are going to have.
I have no idea.
I know I do know this. You don't know this, Patrick, but you know that can we talk about Tom Shambari yet?
About what?
Patrick? Tom Shambari.
Oh, Tom
Shambari. So Numedica is one of the new professional providers that you're going to have at Nutralogic, and it's early to tell you this, but they're going to have, there's a new aged garlic extract that is more concentrated that Dr. Budoff had studied at UCLA. They just published his fourth paper on it that showed it regressed plaque, and another study at medical school in Australia showed it reduced blood pressure. You're going to actually be the first docs to have that when it gets released. So you're going to have this new highly concentrated aged garlic extract that's got human trials on it that are just really strong trials. So you will have it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the great benefits, guys, beyond all the stuff you're seeing with the report, is working with Jim is we're starting to bring in a couple other really unique manufacturing pharmacy supplements. Like we're working right now with Numedica. We're going to pretty soon have, what's the new one, Jim? The I'm brain
compounded nutrients. Right.
Compounded nutrients.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And a series of other ones where we see specialized products.
Yeah, and what's really going to be, I think it's going to be great, guys, is, I get exposed to a lot of raw materials, stuff like Relora, like aged garlic extract, and I'm going to bring them right into here, and we're going to get to play with them before anybody, and it's exciting. but only really good evidence stuff.
Any other questions? All right, well then I'm going to thank Dr. Laval and thank Libby for putting on the seminar for us and everybody that joined. And then we will have this for replay, and Alicia will be sending it out to all the body alerts that can be doctors who want to listen to it in the next 2 days. So everybody have a great night. And I can't wait to see the detailed recommendations, Jim.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Patrick and Lavelle.
Okay.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to working together. This is incredibly exciting.
Bye, Jim.
Boy, was that a mess. Hello?